With doing a strength-only run in Nioh 3, I wanted to try something on the other side of the spectrum, and with me never doing a magic-only run in Nioh 2, I figured magic would be a fun run to do next. So that brings me here today to tell you the story of how I beat Nioh 3 while only leveling magic. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more crazy runs like these, or just like seeing me suffer. With that said, let's get into the rules for this run. Rule number 1, I can only level magic and no other stat. Number 2, level caps. I cannot go past the recommended level of the mission with my character level or my gear level. I do this to make the run a bit harder. Number 3, no co-op. I gotta do this friendless. Number 4, no living artifact for boss fights. A living artifact is just way too busted to use and would win majority of the fights. And lastly, number 5, I must beat all bosses, but I'll only be going over the main boss fights in this video. If you would like to see all the boss fights, check out my VOD channel. With the rules out of the way, let's get this run started. Starting off with my samurai weapon choice, I have two options, the Odachi and the dual swords, but since I haven't used the dual swords yet, I went with them. For the ninja weapon, I had two options here as well, the dual ninja swords, I know, very creative, and the Kusurigama. I decided to go with the Kusurigama just to have a bit of a different weapon type for each style. Of course, after picking my weapon, it's time to pick my guardian spirit, and I went with the ninja Kusanagi for the +1 in skill for armor, but more importantly for its special effects later on. After that, it's time for good old Yamagata. With Yamagata being the tutorial boss, he wasn't too rough. I just made sure to wait for Yamagata to do his 2 spins into a burst attack to counter it. Apply burn with uncanny flame for the tick damage, just stay back and let him whiff a lot, lowering his ki. Allow me to get a stagger off to then combo from the Kusurigama to dual swords. I just repeated this until the point of winning, a very straightforward fight. After this, I teamed up with Honda, who was kind enough to lend his guardian spirit, Shinroku. I then make it to the open field section of the game where I immediately start collecting scrolls for ninja samurai points. But more importantly to a magic run is soul core, since that's how I can use spells and summons. So I started defeating lesser crucibles to get Yoki soul core for its power talisman and lesser Yumi for its water shot talisman. I actually ended up getting 2 lesser Yumis, so I decided to see if I could stack spells, but sadly we cannot. Another nice thing about leveling magic is that I can use summons special effects, which is why I'm fighting Mizuki here. With this, I can actually make a real build this time, unlike my strength run where I didn't have access to summon special effects or armor special effects besides the basic gear. Continuing on my gathering journey, I head to the main crucible so that I can take a detour to the left side to a hidden path that leads to the fire shurikens, a very good ninjutsu tool. I actually find it better for burn buildup than uncanny flame, and it's really good for human fights. Before entering the crucible, I make sure to get enduring burst from the Sudama. But here's where I made my first major mistake in this run, because I didn't use the Sudama soul core, which has the thunderstorm shot talisman, a very strong lightning spell which would have helped with the upcoming boss fights. But at the time, I didn't think the Sudama soul core had a good spell on it. Well, I have to live with that mistake, but hopefully you can learn from mine. I then enter the crucible, fight my way with my new magic spells, and make it to the end. I level up to 15 thinking that was the recommended mission level, but come to find out it was 14. For secret skills, I went with the Cure Fast for increased heals, Enduring Destruction for defense down on counters, Running Water to remove yokai realms when samurai dodging, Roaring Dragon Deflect for magic downs, and Armor Piercer for 10% more grapple damage. For ninjutsu, I made sure to get all the uncanny elements as well as evade. For dual swords, I got Water Sword, Mortal Flow, Mind's Eye, Cherry Blossom, and Deflecting Cut. And lastly, for the Kusurigama, I got Crimson Flurry to level 2 and Serpent Strike. With levels and skills done with, it's time for Grandma Snake Lady. At the start of this run, I didn't really have a build going yet, so my aim was to try and get confusion off by applying Bluster from Uncanny Breeze and Burn from the Fire Shurikens. My mistake here was not switching to Samurai to take advantage of the increased damage to use Water Sword. I tried to fix this by getting some deflects off to lower Baba's magic defense, but I was a bit reckless and ended up getting killed. Round 2, I had a much better start where I got confusion off, but sadly not the water sword in time. Even with that missed opportunity, I was able to get another confusion off with Uncanny Breeze and Fire Shurikens. So I used Mizuki to try and take a massive chunk of her health off, putting Baba's ki low enough for me to use Kusurigama strong attacks to break Baba's stance, allowing me to switch into Guhin to reduce the boss's maximum ki to 0, where I royally fucked up my button presses and ended up only using basic strong attacks when I was trying to get a water sword off. After that mistake, I tried to correct the course with some water shots, but wasn't able to utilize the saturation effect with getting slapped in the face from Grandma's giant snake arm. The fight got really rough at this part, and I thought I might lose, but thanks to Ninja Style's fast dodging abilities, I was able to lower the boss's health low enough for Samurai Style to get the job done. Seeing that I ended up having to rely mostly on Ninja Style, it had me thinking, can you build around one style to dominate bosses? So, to answer that question, I'll be fighting the first map with just Ninja Style and the second map with just Samurai Style to see the difference between soloing with the two. With Snake Grandma defeated, I am gifted Inko, which is a Ninja Style Spirit Guardian who will be very helpful for a future fight. To get my magic ninja build going, I first take on the Novice Magic mission to get the secret skill Awakening, which will allow for me to cast faster. Right after this, I talk to Honda to start a side mission that will let me invade an enemy's base that has a yokai summon that I will need, but at this time I decided to change to the dual ninja swords, and to get some practice in, I took on Kama Itachi, which gives me the benefit of figuring out the weapon, but also the benefit of getting its soul core for the Wind Familiar talisman. I also took on Hino Inma as well for some more practice, and I can say I was starting to feel comfortable with the weapon. Now, feeling like I had the hang of the dual ninja swords, I took on the side mission with Honda to fight a guaranteed Wraith Yama Inu, meaning after beating it, I'll be able to use it for a summon. Now, I don't want it for its actual summon, but for its special effects. You see, Yama Inu will increase my quick damage by 3%, plus giving me faster movement upon Amrita absorption. This is really good for fast weapons like the dual ninja swords and tonfas. To make this even better, I switched to Ninja Kusanagi, which also has a quick attack damage increase of 5.7%. Doesn't seem much, but when attacking at lightning fast speeds, that 8.7% extra damage helps out. On top of this, the Kusanagi Spirit skill will launch you past enemies to their backside, allowing for easy back attacks for even more damage. That's the setup for the dual ninja swords, but now it's time to gather some spells. Which brings me to Lake Hamana, where I needed to put an old friend to rest. When stopping Bochi, you'll obtain his soul core, allowing me to cast Sloth, a very strong spell that will slow down enemies, making it even easier for me to get quick attacks off. I then hunt down a Sand Baba for Devigorate, aka Attack Down Talisman. With that acquired, I was ready to test my build out on Nobutada. With being able to apply Sloth, I could slow down his movements, letting me to get more attacks in freely, while my Water Familiar that I got from Snake Grandma helps apply Saturation. Another part of that helps out is the Footstool Jump from the Ninja Tree. This lets me jump on opponents, but not only that, I can deal key damage while making it easier for me to get behind my enemies, making me become a very annoying fly buzzing around my opponents until they inevitably give up. With my build pretty much set in place, I level up to the next level mission requirement of 39. For secret skills, I get Attack Mastery 1, Supreme Burst, and Evil Dispelling Evade. For dual ninja swords, the most important skills I got were Spinning Drill, Abscission Combo, and Moon Shadow. With that said, it's time for some bad shellfish, and I'm not talking about Kim Kardashian. For Nouharu, I started the fight with Sloth to slow him down so I could use my Wind Familiar to help apply Blustered, and I brought Thunderstorm Shot Talisman this time to apply Electrify. Unfortunately, at this time, I didn't think to reapply Sloth before it ran out. It's actually better to reapply it before it runs out, because after it runs out, it'll take 2 shots to slow him down, and after that, 3, and so forth. After slowing Nouharu down, I would use Devigorate Talisman to try and prevent a one-shot. In hindsight, I should have had the Still Talisman on me to help this out even more, but was too focused on elemental damage at the time. My goal most of the time was to get behind Nobu to spam quick attacks, which Kusanagi was a great help for this. This could have been a first try, but I was panicking near the end, wasting spells and not timing them properly, leading me to die. Sadly, round 2 wasn't any better, so for round 3, I changed things up for a bit, and after getting Bluster off, I used Water Shot to get Saturation and Confusion off, allowing me to deal some devastating damage. Shortly after this, I get another Bluster off to follow with a Thunderstorm Shot to get Electrify and Confusion off, with a perfect timing of a counter to get a defense down to then use Kusanagi to get behind Nobu for some back damage. I then used my Fire Shurikens to proc burn for the tick damage, and then I got another counter. With Nobu barely having any health left, he went down. Looking back on this, I should have gotten Sloth and Electrify off at the same time to make Nobu super slow just to wail on his backside, but lesson learned. After beating Nobu, I get to my next level cap of 43, and I have no spells I need to obtain, so that means it's round 2 with Yamagata. And in typical fashion for me with this fight, I go down rather quickly on the first attempt. Round 2, I kept using talismans too early, leading me to get hit a good bit, having me run out of elixirs near the end of the fight, and I couldn't hold on this time. Round 3 I should have won, but once again I repeat myself of not using my range attacks when I should and ended up getting grabbed to my death. Luckily, the 4th try was my time to shine. With Yamagata being a fire boss, the obvious choice here was the water familiar. I then throw out 2 uncanny bolts and got good RNG at the start to get a counter to follow with a thunderstorm shot to apply the electrify, slowing him down to get saturation and confusion off, making his ki drop to 0 quickly for me to use Kusanagi to get behind Yamagata to get a spinning drill off into some quick attacks. Once in the Dark Realm, I then use my first sloth to guarantee the slowdown. I then use my Wind Familiar to get Bluster off, allowing me to then knock him out of the Dark Realm with no issues and getting a grapple at the end of it. I then take advantage of him getting back up to get a spinning drill off from the back. With only using Sloth once, I get another one off with 2 shots, leading into a Thunderstorm shot followed by a counter into Abscission combo, into a Kusanagi kick, into a back spinning drill for the win. Now that's the build shining through right there. Funny enough, the level requirements does not change for the next boss fight, so I just ran past everything when I should have gotten some soul cores while I was there. Either way, my main man Taketa is up next. I thought this fight was going to be hell since in my previous run with strength only I found Ninja struggling a good bit with human fights, but oh how wrong I was. With being able to jump off human bosses, you can just get behind them non-stop, forcing them to block 80% of the time, making it very easy to stagger them for a grapple. Now add a magic ninja to this and you just start bullying the poor bastard. This is even before I found out about comboing Nujitsu into my melee combos, which I'll go over later on. With that said, I literally bounced, spin, grappled, and kicked my way to victory. My reward for this victory is the Narikama Spirit Guardian, another guardian who will be used later on in this run. I debated at this point exploring more to get more secret skills or spells, but with how well the past few fights were going, I decided just to make my way to Yokai Taketa. The level recommendation for this mission is 51, but I only got to 47. It's just Yokai Taketa, basically a pushover. Noted. Don't talk out of ass unless you can back it up. Fortunately, round 2 played out way better. With Yokai Taketa being a fire and wind enemy, I focus on using water and lightning for status effects. Yokai Taketa seems menacing, but if you just dodge his combos, you can get behind him with no issues for some back damage. Add saturation to this and you can just start melting the boss's health bar. I know in Nioh 2, saturation let the player deal 28% more melee damage, but I'm not too sure if that's still the case here. Either way, I still can deal more damage with it than without it. I then tried to spice things up with getting paralysis off with paralytic ground fire, but that was a failed addition to this build, which really didn't matter because around this point the boss had about a quarter of health left, so I just applied sloth and electrify to slow-mo him to get some more hits in from behind and then finish the fight off with an uncanny bubble. Now I can talk out of my ass. That is sarcasm, by the way. With Taketa defeated, I can use the tea house and decided to go with Maeda again. I probably should have gone with Akichi instead, but it's hard for me to resist a defense down on a grapple. Also at this time, I get the Adapt Magic mission to allow me to now level up my Guardian Spirits. Before moving to the next region, I take out a YouTuber preparing for an apology video to get Lightning Shikigami. It would be at this point I would take on the Demon of Pride, but I can't fight him until I beat Tengu, so that's what I'm going to do next. My level for this fight was 51. The start of the fight with Tengu was a bit rough. I ended up missing a burst counter, barely surviving the hit, but after recovering from that, I was able to pressure with Thunderstorm Shot, Wind Familiar, and some quick attacks to gain some advantage back. Once in the Dark Realm, I used a Sloth tactic to help speed up the process of getting Tengu out of it. If only I wouldn't have messed up the burst counter, it would have been sooner, but once again I survived and recovered. To become the annoying fly that I am to bosses, Tengu ends up going for a grab, so I took advantage of this to get 2 thunderstorms off, making the next burst attack easier to counter. For the last bit of Tengu's health, I went with a Kusanagi kick into a flurry of quick attacks to take down the friendly misunderstood yokai, granting me access to female Tengu, which will allow me to fight the Demon of Pride, who I massively underestimated due to my previous run. In my recent run, I had no issues first trying this blue bastard, but because of that, I never really learned his moveset, which is a long-winded way of saying I died 5 times trying to figure it out. The strategy for this fight was to take advantage of the start of the Demon of Pride while he's being summoned by using Thunderstorm to get Electrify off. I would then get behind the boss while my Wind Familiar was going to get quick attacks in combination with Uncanny Breeze to get the Bluster Confusion proc. I then back up to get a burn proc with my fire shurikens to extend the confusion and to get some tick damage going. He then started to do his wave slash attack, which is indicated by him summoning the single bubble. Since he did this, I could get behind him to take advantage from behind like football players do in a locker room. With being a bit under level for this fight, I decided to wait and use my sloth later instead of using it for the Dark Realm. Instead, I used Devigorate to lower his attack damage and then use my summons to whittle down his maximum ki. If you ever see him do his small bubble attack, just know it will zigzag 3 times before striking you, so you just need to dodge after the 3rd zig. For his slap burst attack, I just counted to 3, and on 3, I countered it. Most of the time, I couldn't see his animation for it, so countering was easier than looking for the telegraph. I make sure to get blustered off here since when leaving the Dark Realm, they still keep their status effect. Allow me to get a burn off with my fire shurikens and then a thunderstorm shot for the confusion. At this point, he enrages, which I encounter with using sloth and then try to get him to waste his bubble homing soul mass. After using all of them, he will go for a slap combo followed by a single bubble attack, which I make sure to dash into the bubble attack to get some strikes in from the back. Also, if you ever see him do his water shurikens, make sure to dodge into them or sprint in between them. This is a good time to get some hits in. At this point, he was going back into the Dark Realm and rage. So I used my lightning shikigami here to get chip damage in. Then get my second sloth off to help in the last Dark Realm. Once out of the realm, I knew it was time to finish the fight. I used shikigami and shurikens to lower his health some more for me to dash in and finish this fight off with a spinning drill. Looks like even in a leveling magic only run, you can spin to win. The most shocking thing is that he dropped level 90 gear, which is weird because in my previous run he dropped level 50 gear, so I don't know what's going on there. But by beating the Demon of Pride, I got his soul core, which means I get Hell Stream. Hell Stream is probably one of the best spells in the game, but can be hard to use. Hell Stream will summon bubbles from the ground in the area you cast it, but what makes the spell strong is that you can cast it back to stack the bubbles, to unleash Hell's army of bubble demons onto your foes. If pulled off correctly, this could do a lot of damage to bosses. Anyways, with bubble talk done with, it's time to switch to samurai style and see what Switchglaive and dual swords have to offer. To get some better practice with the Switchglaive, I decided to go back to the first map and do a few side missions. Poor Ryomen and Hana didn't stand a chance with me being so high level at this time. The main Switchglaive skills I ended up using were Cyclone Wind, Infinite Retribution, Fleeting Edge, and Kibosh Kicker. I will say I did get carried away with Infinite Retribution. With its rapid slash attacks, it made it very enticing to corner bosses and pressure them non-stop with the assault, but that greed for multiple hits was my downfall in a few fights. Speaking of such moves, this happens with the dual swords as well with Water Sword skill, where I wanted to get the multi-slash off for big damage. The tricky thing about these skills is that it locks you in place and has a tendency to push bosses or enemies away from you, but if you can just place it just right, oh, the damage you can achieve is amazing. Enough multi-hit talk, time to gather some spells for the next gauntlet of boss fights. First up, I got the Lightning Familiar from the Rajin Soul Core, I get the Water and Fire Talisman, hunt down a Wraith Karasu Tengu for a guaranteed Soul Core for Wind Shot, and lastly for a summon, I fight a Wraith Bakigani that is located where you encountered Bochi. With that done, I head to the next boss, but first I blow up a bird with my trusty cannon. Along my path to Otoroshi, I find a wild Koroka, and got lucky enough it dropped its Soul Core, meaning I get the Explosive Shot Talisman. To celebrate this, I blew up another bird with my cannon. So the level up cap for this next boss is 69, but my bamboo ass stopped at 65 because I saw my magic stat at 69 thinking that was my level for some reason, but we can't go wrong at stopping at 69. For secret skills that I picked up, I got Attack Mastery 1, Fortitude 1, Defense Mastery 1 and 2, and Unshackable to help with defense while I'm attacking. With skills out of the way, that brings us to Otoroshi, where my monkey brain did not fail to go in with a water build against a water yokai. All my years training to be a Pokemon master have failed me. Pretty obvious I lost the first round here. Instead, I switched my build to a wind one with Karasu Tengu for my summon for the 6% increased melee damage to blustered enemies, traded Water Shot for Wind Familiar, and changed my Spirit Guardian to Ko-en-go Gishi, which will increase my wind damage by 9.4% and upon deflect give me an attack boost. Also to note, anytime I use a Guardian Spirit, I will always level up as high as I can. With that done, it's time for my rematch with Otoroshi. For this fight, I changed it up and went for a Sloth at the start, with a Wind Familiar running and a Fire Talisman applied. Sadly, even in low stance, I really couldn't get my fire build up going, which kinda put me off from using elemental talismans in the run, when in hindsight I should have kept using them because per hit was over 100 damage, which adds up in the long run, but even with burn not proccing, I got Bluster off for infinite retribution to whittle down the boss's maximum ki. I did try and deflect attacks to get the elemental defense down plus the attack up, but I really haven't practiced deflecting, so I got hit more often than not. I was struggling a bit with the Dark Realm and just made it through with only 3 elixirs left. I was able to get a grapple off, so I took advantage of the moment to get some Hell Streams off, which helped lower the boss's ki enough for me to get another stun off to then combo into Fleeting Edge into Infinite Retribution, and as you can see, Infinite Retribution can go burr. With the boss's health at about 25%, I then use an Explosive Shot to get a burn off while dealing some meaty damage, lowering Otoroshi's health just low enough for me to finish him off with some mid-stance quick attacks, earning me Otoroshi's Soul Core, allowing me to use the Barrier Talisman for increased ki recovery. After that fight, I made sure to pay Ninra a visit so that I could get his Soul Core for his summon. He increases fire damage by 4.4%, and his summon attack is pretty good if it lands on the target, which I'm going to need all the firepower I can get because Muscle Mommy is up next and she's ready to give me a welcome pounding.
Yeah, I would let her peg me too.
That's not what I meant. With that misunderstanding out of the way, let's get into how I beat Ibaraki Doji. For this fight, I actually went with the saturation build. Here, I went with Narukami for the water damage increase and strong attack damage increase. It also has a unique spirit attack that is actually a counter, so it needs to be timed before an attack lands for it to go off, but the timing is very generous. For the summon, I put on the crab for the 6% melee damage to saturated enemies. Interestingly enough, in Nioh, lightning enemies tend to be weak to water, which is why I went with this route. The biggest mistake I made, though, was not upgrading my gear before this. This fight has a level recommendation of 80. My gear at this moment is 60s and 50s. So Ibaraki didn't struggle too much with killing me. She actually killed me 11 times, giving me that well-deserved pounding. What I ended up having to do was pressure from the start with Water Talisman, then use Narukami's counter to help protect me while applying more saturation, and then use the crab to get saturation off. After this, I use Wind Shot to get a Blustered and Confusion applied. I then take advantage of this to get an Infinite Retribution off, where you get a good example of it locking me in place and getting smacked for it. Once in the Dark Realm, I reapply Blustered, then apply Sloth. I take advantage of her being slowed down to run around her attacks to get some proficiency strong attacks in. After this, I use Explosive Shots to proc burn. Also a tip for samurai players, when you deflect projectiles, it will actually pull you in closer to the enemy, which can help close the gap to get some hits in. I am so glad I had Narukami here because that counter saved my life. With Ibaraki at bit past half health, I then tried to use the crab to get saturation off again, but ended up a bit short of getting it. Knowing I needed to pressure at this point, I used a Barrier Talisman to speed up my ki recovery, to pressure into Kibosh Kicker into a strong attack into a failed Infinite Retribution, but I saved it with Narukami's counter. I then spam Hellstream to summon my bubble army, putting Ibaraki into saturation, where me and my bubbles could finish her off. A super fun fight with how this played out. This will allow me to use Muscle Mommy, and with how strong of a summon she is, I cannot pass up using her. I then get myself to level 83, add Attack Mastery 2 to my secret skills, change my Spirit Guardian for Guhin for its quick multi-hit attack, put on some better armor, and take on Kage Toki. I decided to switch to dual swords at this point to show them off a bit, but without using them for a minute, I had a bit of a learning curve. That curve was 2 failed attempts. On my 3rd attempt, I wasn't playing around anymore and made sure to go hard from the start. I got Sloth off to slow him down, and then kited him to one of the walls. The trickiest part here was keeping pressure to keep him there. It took a second, but I was finally able to get him into the corner where I was able to get a Water Sword off after a burst counter for the defense down for some nice damage. I then used Guhin to reduce his ki to 0 to get a grapple off, to then summon Muscle Mommy to get an Electrify applied onto him. I then summon my Bubble Army to entrap Kage Toki. I do get some good RNG while using Guhin again for a burst counter, where I accidentally switched to Ninja and had to switch back to Samurai real quick. Not going to throw the win just for that little mishap. To finish the fight off, I spam Wind Shot for the win. Not going to lie, I still don't enjoy this fight at all. The man is a ninja essentially and can hyper armor out of the wazoo, but I can't fight human bosses that are samurai and pressure them to death. It makes no sense to me, Team Ninja. With beating Kage Toki, I can now have 2 summons, making me feel ready for the Demon of Envy. With the Demon of Envy focusing on fire, I went with my saturated build from earlier. I had the same issue with her as I did with the Demon of Pride, where I didn't really know her attacks that well, leading me to perish 4 times. The way I won this fight was taking advantage at the start while she's being summoned. I used my Water Familiar and Thunderstorm shot to get confusion off. I then proceeded to pressure for damage while protecting myself with Narukami. I was able to get the stagger and go for Water Sword. While Water Swording, she went into the Dark Realm where I used Narukami to body slam her while casting Thunderstorm shot. I got lucky after this she went for a Meteor Kick, which you can deflect, and can get even luckier after this she went for a burst attack for me to counter, giving me the chance to lower her maximum ki to 0 to get another Water Sword off, into a grapple. Around this point, she'll point her snakes to the ground for an attack which will allow me to get Wind Shot off, and this attack is great for charging in as well to get hits in, or in my case, Thunderstorm shot. Now that she is past half health, she'll go absolutely nuts and go into the Dark Realm, which I counter with Muscle Mommy. Also, a perk of having Narukami is that you have a chance an elixir is not used upon consumption. Seeing the chaos unfold before me, I knew I needed to embrace it because she might have the chaos of fire, but I have the chaos of bubbles. Demon of Envy thought she was the crazy one, but she never met the Bubble Fiend Akane. Where the others run from the chaos of the world, I smother it with my bubbles and make it my own. Coming in the next DLC for Nioh 3, Demon of Akane, the Bubble Fiend. After hopefully being the next boss in the DLC, I acquired the Demon of Envy's Soul Core, giving me the Hellfire Talisman. The talisman shoots out an AoE of fire around you and has a very high burn buildup, but for the next boss I'll be using Envy for her summon. With that done, I equipped Oppressive Strength to help with martial art combos and enter the final crucible of this map for me to take on Yoritomo. I get myself to level 86 and switch my Guardian Spirit to Shinroku. Shockingly, Yoritomo wasn't that bad this time around. Granted, he killed me within the first 30 seconds on my first go at him, but we don't have to talk about that. With dual swords being a fast weapon, I was shocked at how well they can actually melt bosses' ki away with strong attacks. Add lightning and water to him, it makes it even easier to melt his HP bar and maximum ki bar. In one stun, I took off about 30% of his health bar. That's some pretty nutty damage in a single stat run, and if I was actually good at this game, it probably could have been more. In the Dark Realm, Muscle Mommy took care of most of his ki while I applied Sloth on him, allowing me to combo him once more while stunned. Again, if I was good at the game, I would have gotten a grapple off, but I didn't. So instead, I summoned Demon of Envy while replying Sloth on Yori. With him being slowed down, it was time for my bubble army to arise once more. I get a few explosive shots off and charge in with my army of bubbles to end this fight once and for all. With Yoritomo defeated, I get O. But the guardian I really need is Ho-Oh. Yes, the Pokemon Ho-Oh. Except I'm not ready just yet for that challenging task. What I am ready for is the Kusanagi fight. I didn't know if I just had really good RNG on my first playthrough, but this time Himiko was having a field day smacking me with her magic from afar. Probably the saddest thing was that I finally pulled off a nice combo with Fleeting Edge into Frost Moon Heaven into Strong Attack into Infinite Retribution, just racking up damage to then get stunned and comboed by Kusanagi. I was not a happy camper to say the least, but on round 4 I was just able to take hit after hit to recover to get spells and combos in, leading to the mighty Kusanagi's defeat. So I think we can clearly see that ninja soloing and samurai soloing is very viable. Personally, I like to use both, but in challenge runs where I can die quickly, ninja seems the safer option. But as you will see, I do prefer using samurai the most. It was also at this point I got to level 92 and decided to start using the split staff to get the hang of it, and the skills I ended up mainly using were Seesaw Strike Impact, Darting Cloud, Shape Shift, and Radiant Moon Lightning. Being exhausted from saving the world and all, I decided it was time to take a nice bath break.
What are you doing? Bathing. Now is not the time for a leisurely soak.
Damn it, Himiko, let me have one thing. With my bath ruined, it was time for Hiroko. For this fight, I decided to use the Odachi, which is another weapon that scales with magic, so that I can use Bolting Boar martial art. What I didn't take into account was my armor level again and got punished for it. After dying, I changed out my gear to level 90 through 93. With Bolting Boar, Hiroko's human phase wasn't that hard since I could counter any of his sword attacks, plus having Narukami to counter anything else. The real issue is with phase 2. I kept getting hit by his fast dash attack right after being hit, and instead of waiting to heal, I kept trying to heal, leading to my death 3 times. What I ended up having to do was use my split staff to lower his ki, and then Radiant Moon Lightning came in clutch to help with getting backshots in. Once he was out of ki, I would go into my Odachi to get Proficiency Swirling Snow off. When Hiroko was in the Dark Realm, I would use my summons and my Ninja Spirit Guardian skills to lower his ki again for me to continue comboing with my Odachi. I just repeated this until I finally got a grapple off, letting me finish the fight off with a Thunderstorm shot. I think this is a good example as to why using both styles can aid you in winning for a fight. The ninja style really good for lowering that ki while having those safe dodges, and the samurai style for the massive damage you can deal with comboing while the boss is stunned. After beating Hiroko, I got my magic stat to 99, so no more levels for me. That means it's time for Kunimatsu, who wasn't horrible this time because I just countered all of his sword attacks with Bolt and Bore. I guess that means the workaround with human bosses that hyper armor a lot is just using a counter martial art. Now, I will say it's really cool the amount of attacks that you can counter. Of course his basic attacks, but you can actually counter his dive bomb attack and even his wind dash attack. That's really cool that you can stop those attacks, which is the reason why I almost first tried him. What really helped with this was using Inko for burn since it increases damage over time. On top of this, I added a Nioh to my summons for increased fire damage so Explosive Shot and Hellfire would deal even more damage, making the second attempt a lot more manageable. With beating Kunimatsu, I can now do the veteran mission, allowing me to get access to amplification skill, which will extend magic effects, and I can get mystic arts, which I got Law of Lethality for Split Staff, Cloud Dancer for Ninja Dual Swords, Wildfire Flux for Switchglaive, and Momentum for Dual Swords. After getting my mystic arts, I take on the Pleasure District to get my next spell, the Geyser Shot Talisman, which can be obtained from a Yasha Soul Core. With that, I take on my favorite human fight in the game, Shinsaku. Honestly, this fight is so good, I forgot majority of the time I even had spells I could use. With actually being able to pressure the boss and him not hyper armoring all the time, I just wanted to keep fighting him with my Odachi. It really is a shame they didn't make Kunimatsu or Kagetoki this way. Shin was able to get me on the first go around, but on round 2 I was able to lower his health so low that I only needed to use Muscle Mommy, then some Odachi combos followed by a Ninra to finish off this amazing fight. It was at this point I felt ready for the arduous task of getting Ho-Oh. I had defeated Yoshiune and some of his underlings to get the Battle Scroll mission beneath a pure white flag. Here I had to fight 3 human bosses and Yoshiune. Even at the recommended gear level, this fight was extremely hard. What did help was weaving ninjutsu projectiles such as the Fire Shuriken in between attacks. The reason this helps is that it keeps the human bosses blocking longer while I recover ki back since ninjutsu doesn't cost ki. So with my limited ki pool, I could keep the pressure going longer on them to get a grapple off. With learning this, I could make it to Yoshi to finally put an end to this mission, for me to get the Ho-Oh Spirit Guardian. The reason for getting this spirit is that it increases magic damage, has untouched magic, which means I have a chance of not consuming a spell, and has reduced attack on magic hit for ninja and reduced movement for samurai. The ninja style attack gives the player wings to hit the enemy from side to side, whereas the samurai style is an uppercut lightning punch that sends an electric wave at the enemy. After getting Ho-Oh, I get my second to last spell, the run Gale Shot Talisman, which is obtained from Itsumari Soul Core. With that acquired, I took on Nuri Botoke, who clapped my cheeks in the first round because I wasn't used to the long wind-up time of the samurai's Ho-Oh attacks, leaving me a sitting duck to get grabbed and died. Round 2, on the other hand, I wasn't going to fall for that twice, so I dodged his grab to get a water sword going. After this, I used Gale Shot to apply Blustered and reduce movement thanks to Ho-Oh. I then used Muscle Mommy to lower Nuri's ki and pressure on into using Ninja Ho-Oh's wing attack to then combo from Ninja Dual Swords into Samurai Dual Swords. I also brought Kamaitachi for the increased wind damage and to help apply Blustered. After this, I get a Slough Off to add on to reduced movement, making Nuri a sitting target, which is great because my bubble army loves sitting targets. I then aided my army with Geyser shots, which are pretty tricky to pull off sometimes. But no worries because good old Kamaitachi has my back, finishing the fight off with a Fire Shuriken. After the fight, I pick up Dead Bringer to increase magic damage for every negative status effect on the enemy. With having that skill, I was ready to test it out on a boss, and no better boss to do it on than the Demon of Obsession, which I was going to talk about, but I think the gameplay will do a better job of that than me. Enjoy. Remember, I don't have any special effects with my armor, which means no set bonuses. Could you imagine the damage I could have done if I did have it? With beating the Demon of Obsession, I get the Hellgust Talisman, which lets me summon a tornado out onto the field, and just like Hellstream, you can cast it all at once, having an army of tornadoes at your disposal. Up next is Sogi, who I thought was an optional fight, but if you don't fight him here, you'll have to fight him before Yoshinobu. I don't recommend this because then you'll have to do a 2-phase fight instead of a 1-phase fight. Sogi was pretty tough, killing me 5 times, but on attempt 6 I was able to overwhelm him with the spells and Switchglaive combos that he didn't stand a chance, which means Yoshinobu is up next. Once again, I didn't have any troubles with this fight. Maybe on my weaponless run he'll give me more trouble. I just needed my new Hellgust Talisman and Hellfire Talisman to get 2 debuffs on him to take more damage from Confusion and Deadbringer for spells. When stunned, I use Guardian Spirit to reduce maximum ki. Once in the Dark Realm, I get Muscle Mummy off for the Electrify and get a burst counter after this. I take advantage of this to reduce his maximum ki to 0 and absolutely fail at the grapple. That's 2 runs in a row I have done this. To make up for it, I spam Hellgust and Hellfire, lowering his ki down enough that a burst break leaves him open for a grapple. That I of course fuck up again, and Yoshinobu almost had the comeback right there, but I was barely able to save it to finish the fight off with some fire shurikens. One day you will get me, Yoshinobu, one day. I ended up forgetting to get Patient of the Gods in Yoshinobu's mission, so I had to redo it to get it because 24% more status buildup will be super helpful for this final fight. With the final mission having a gear recommendation level of 134, I go level up my equipment, having me ready for round 2 with Hiroko. Near the end here, I got way too confident and went in with a build that was not that great. I was just using Golden Sachi for the saturation melee damage boost with the crab saturation boost. But I wasn't even using Samurai stance majority of the time, so this build just wasn't optimal. I was able to win with this messy build, but it took me 15 attempts to do so. I wasn't happy with the build I was using and just brute forced my way to victory. So I decided I was going to do the fight again with a more well thought out build, and a third time with a more spell focused approach. First thing is I need to get the Blood Edge Demon Soul Core for more elemental damage and then switch back to Ho-Ho for Samurai. The strategy for this build was to start the fight with Gale Gust to get the attack down and bluster off. I would then focus on getting Seesaw Strike Impact off, ideally from the back side. For stance breaking, I made sure to do this from his back. The reason for this is that if you're not fast enough to hit Hiroko after his stun, he will hyper armor, losing your chance to get a stagger combo off. But if you hit him from the back, you won't have any issues. Once staggered, I would switch to Switchglaive to get a proficiency combo going. Once in the Dark Realm, I use some Fire Shurikens to get a burn off, and then use Hellgust again. This will usually send him to his blood stage, where he will usually do his dive bomb burst attack. After countering it, I will use my Wing Guardian attack because Hiroko has a high chance of doing a follow-up burst attack. With the burst countered, I pressure with quick attacks and my Guardian Spirit to get the break for the grapple. With the defense down applied, I reapply burn with Fire Shurikens and Hellfire. Immediately after this, I use Hellgust into Gale Shot to get the confusion off. Hiroko fucked up and went for another burst attack, allowing me to counter it and go all out with my Guardian and strong attacks, leading to my victory. With this, I never had to use Sloth or majority of my spells or even summons. But with this being a magic run, that didn't really feel right to me, so let's get into the spell build. For this, I needed to switch my clan to Akachi for the plus 25 to magic. An interesting thing I found out as well is that you can use 2 different clan perks. So I can use the increased magic damage plus the defense down on grapples. I had no clue you could do this, and I'm very interested to see what other combinations I could come with in future runs. For this build, I stay in Samurai style for the reduced movement on spell hit. At the start of the fight, I use Hellgust into Sloth, and after Hiroko's fire attack, I get 2 Thunderstorm shots off for the Electrify, making Hiroko stupid slow. I then use Blood Edge to destroy the boss's ki and then use Water Sword. This will trigger the snow phase where I reapply Sloth while summoning Muscle Mommy, which will push the boss into his blood phase. Here I go into Gale Shot for Blustered, and of course Hiroko goes for his burst attack, which I countered the first one and the second one. I messed up my Water Sword input here, but that's okay. I then use Hellstream to trap Hiroko, who was foolish enough to go for another burst attack. After this, I aim to reapply Bluster through Gale Shot and Hellgust. I got another burst counter off for a grapple, and this was the opportunity I was waiting for the entire time. After this, Hiroko will stay in place for me to spam Hellgust and Hellfire, allowing me to dish out between 3k and 4k of damage per hit, just destroying his health bar entirely. Now that's how a magic build should go. And with that, we come to the end of the run. I really enjoyed this single stat run. I got to use a bunch of spells and actually got to make a build this time. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. At this time, I would also like to thank my channel supporters. If you too would like to support the channel or have your name in the video, you can click the Patreon link in the description or click the YouTube join button. I also from time to time stream my runs, so you can catch me streaming on YouTube or over on Twitch at Akane Gaming. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.